Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Power and Access, a University Experience in Our Nation's Capital. We're really excited to have you tonight. I think it's going to be a great presentation. A couple of housekeeping items. If we have a couple handouts that we've put in there, two from SCORE, which is just shameless marketing, and one from American. And you can just click on the little handouts portion of the GoToWebinar control panel, and you'll be able to download those. If you have any problems, send me an email, jason@score18e.com, and I can email them to you personally. If at any point in the webinar you run into audio difficulties, if you click on the audio part of the GoToWebinar control panel, you'll have the ability to call in by phone and listen over the phone. It happens every once in a while, so give that a shot. If that doesn't work, send me a chat or put in a question, and I'll see what I can do on my end, if anything. Before I introduce our two presenters, I wanted to do two quick polls. So the first one is just to get a sense of who's in the audience. So if you can take, I'm going to leave it open for about 30 seconds. Just let us know who you are. There you go. Thank you, everybody, for putting in your answers. We got about 50%. It's over 60 now. Leave it open for another 15 seconds or so. We're almost 70%. I know some people are still trickling in, so if any of the new people came in, if you can send us your answers. Right now, it looks like we are predominantly independent educational consultants. All right, I'm gonna end it now. So just so everyone has an idea, we're almost 70% independent educational consultants. The next biggest audience is our rising seniors. One more question, just get an idea of where everybody is watching from. So if you guys can let us know where you're watching from. Again, I'm just gonna leave this open for about 30 seconds. This one's filling up a little bit faster, so I might be able to end it a little bit quicker. 68%. And a couple more seconds, and I'm done. All right, just so everyone knows, this is what the audience looks like, predominantly Florida, but then I guess it's pretty spread out between the East Coast and West Coast. Nobody in Washington, D.C., except for our two presenters. So first up tonight, we're going to hear from Dylan Robinson from American University. Dylan is currently the Assistant Director of Admissions at American. He's in his 7th year at admissions, including the last 3 with American. He graduated with a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science from High Point University. He is an active member of SACAC and was a previous faculty member for their Dry Run Conference and a co-leader for the Latinx Hispanic Special Interest Group. In his current position, Dylan manages the Florida territory, assists in China file review, and serves on the Council of Relations team and the community-based organization outreach team. Thank you so much, Dylan, for coming today. Also, we have Benjamin Toll. He's the Dean of Undergraduate Admissions at GW. He is responsible for leading domestic and international enrollment efforts for both first-year and transfer students at GW within the 5 residential colleges. He previously worked in undergraduate admissions at St. Mary's College of Maryland and the University of Minnesota Morris. He received his BA in economics and sociology from St. Mary's College of Maryland and an MS in project management from the GW University School of Business. And finally, our host tonight will be my mother, Judi Robinovitz, also the founder and CEO of SCORE at the Top Learning Centers in Schools and Judi Robinovitz Associates Educational Consulting. She has been guiding students for over 35 years. As an educational consultant, she's authored numerous books, articles, and software on test preparation and college planning. In her 23-year tenure at Educational Testing Services, Judi was the technical liaison to the College Board. She wrote the College Board's first SAT prep software and strategy chapters for the original SAT prep books. Judi founded SCORE at the Top in Florida, which is accredited by Advanced Ed Incognia. Our 5 locations provide academic tutoring, SAT and ACT prep, courses for credit, and a full-time private school in an intentionally small classroom of 1 to 6 students. And she's also achieved a perfect score in the SAT and has devoted her professional life to helping students achieve academic success. So without further ado, I am now going to turn this over to Dylan and let him get started. Here you go, Dylan.
Great. So thank you, Jason and Judy, definitely for having me tonight. So again, my name is Dylan Robinson, Assistant Director of Admissions at American. Tonight, I'm going to go over a general university overview as well as a specific admissions overview to the university. I want to start by taking a moment to talk a little bit about who we are as an institution. AU was chartered back in 1893. Our university mission back then was to train future public servants. Today, AU creates all types of leaders in more than 60 different fields of study. A lot of people ask what the typical AU student looks like. And I think Change Makers for a Changing World does a pretty good job. We're committed to graduating critical thinkers who aren't afraid to tackle some of the world's most pressing problems and are going to become experts in their field, whether it's enhancing civic engagement, furthering science and technology, or educating children. One of my favorite things about AU is that we do have a traditional college campus while being in the city. So you really get the best of both worlds. Our 91-acre campus is a registered arboretum. So we have over 100 different types of trees and flowers on campus. We are also proud to be the first carbon neutral university in the country. We accomplished that back in 2018, 2 years ahead of schedule. And we recently announced that we have fully divested of fossil fuels. So sustainability is definitely a value and a priority at AU. Here are just some photos that you can look at of our campus. The bottom right is going to be our traditional academic quad, where all of our academic buildings kind of surround the area. Definitely on a nice day, you'll see students here hanging out, playing Frisbee, eating lunch, meeting with different faculty members. A few more pictures, including our academic buildings. The top right is our brand new Hall of Science that will open up this fall. We're really excited about that and for our science programs. Our city, so AU's campus is located in the northwest part of Washington, D.C., just a few miles from the National Mall. Though our neighborhood is more residential, students have easy access to public transportation to get to different parts of the city. We actually provide all of our full-time students what we call a U-Pass, which allows unlimited rides on the DC public transportation system, including the Metro and Metro buses, to get around the DC and the DMV area pretty easily. A lot of people think of DC as being all about politics, and while we are home to a lot of different government buildings, DC is also a cultural hub that is also a wonderful place to live. For example, we have professional sports teams, great concert venues, a lot of unique restaurants, and we are the second largest theater city in the country after New York City. We have a little over 8,000 undergraduate students here at AU, which I think is kind of the perfect mid-sized university. It's not too small where you feel like you know everybody, but not too big where it feels overwhelming. Our average classes is around 23 students, and the student to faculty ratio is about 11:1. All of our classes are taught by faculty members, and no teaching assistants will actually teach classes. We are also very proud of our geographic diversity. So our students come from all 50 states and about 123 different countries. So why AU? So let's talk a little bit about the first year experience at AU. We know that the transition from high school to college can be difficult. So we have a program that takes you through some of the ins and outs of college and academics. Every incoming student will take foundational courses in their first year that are designed to set them up for success throughout their time at AU. That does include what we call the American University Experience, or AUX courses. Those courses are discussion-based, more in a kind of a living room type of classroom. They teach students different academic skills, life skills, personal finance, budgeting, how to navigate social and cultural differences within AU's kind of diverse community. All incoming AU students will be assigned a first-year advisor. That first-year advisor will actually teach that first AUX course in the first semester as well. One of our most popular opportunities for students is going to be study abroad. So about 70% of our students study abroad. We offer over 150 different program options, 50 different countries and 6 different continents. Most students study abroad for a semester. You can also study abroad for a full year or the summer, or different alternative break trips. The great thing about AU abroad programs is that as long as you meet the minimum requirements, which is usually about a 2.75 GPA and sophomore status credit-wise and above, you'll be able to study abroad. We have programs for every single one of our majors. There's usually plenty of spots in those programs for anybody who wishes to study abroad. Additionally, tuition and financial aid will stay the same. The only difference in costs is the cost of living, which can vary on the type of housing that you have in the country that you're living in. One of our most popular experiential learning opportunities is going to be internships. So about 91% of our students will complete at least one internship before graduating. The average number of internships an AU student completes is about 3. Our Career Center works with students to match internships both here and abroad. If you're familiar with DC, it pretty much runs on interns. Almost every single office, whether it's federal, government, private sector, nonprofit, you name it, hires interns. So you'll have definitely plenty of opportunity within the DC area. As I mentioned before, students will receive the unlimited Metro Pass, allowing them to get to and from those internships fairly easy. Talking about our different schools and colleges, so we do have 6 different undergraduate schools and colleges. We also have the Washington College of Law. So I won't go into each school, but an important thing to note is that academics at AU are cross-disciplinary. So that means you can apply to AU, you apply to AU as a whole. You don't apply to a specific major or a specific school. You can take classes across schools and colleges. You can easily switch majors from one school to another. You can double major in the same school or across schools, you name it. We only require students to declare a major by the end of their sophomore year, giving students the flexibility to explore more interests. Talking about a little bit about life at AU. So when it comes to housing, we do have 12 different residence halls on campus that range from standard double rooms to apartment style rooms. We guarantee housing for the first 2 years. Our residence halls are staffed with RAs. On each floor has their own restrooms, laundry room facilities, study rooms, and lounge areas with kitchens. As for dining, we also have 12 different dining locations around our campus. We have a number of quick service style vendors as well, including Subway, Starbucks, and Einstein Bagels. You can also use your meal plan at some of the off-campus restaurants, as well as CVS and Whole Foods. Our students are highly engaged. I think we do have one of the most active student bodies in the country. We have over 150 different student clubs and organizations. Some of our more popular clubs include, AU College Democrats, AU College Republicans, as well as the Cheese Club. So there's a lot of different activities for students with any interest. Our varsity sports teams are Division I. We do play in the Patriot League. We also offer club sports and an intramural sports. So we have options for every level of competitiveness that students might be looking for. Greek life, we do have a number of opportunities there, both social, professional, cultural, sororities, and fraternities. About 30% of our students are part of a Greek organization. We do have deferred recruitment, so that means that students get that first semester to be a college student and see what each organization is all about before they decide to go through recruitment. I like to describe it as presence but not a pressure at AU for Greek life. What we look for, so kind of going into the academic, or excuse me, the admissions process. So here is our most recent admitted student profile by the numbers. Do keep in mind that these are the middle 50% averages. So there are students below and above these averages who are admitted to the university. It's also important to note that we are a test optional university. We have been test optional for the last 10 years. So students don't have to feel the need to submit test scores if they don't want to. We do have 3 different decision types: early decision 1, early decision 2, and regular decision. We do not have early action, and we do not have rolling admission. Please do keep in mind that both early decision 1 and 2 are binding agreements. So you would definitely want to make sure that AU is your #1 choice if you apply an early decision. All financial aid forms are also due at that same time as your application. We also do offer a number of different special academic programs. These programs do require another supplemental application that you can find on our website. The priority deadline for those applications are going to be December 15th, but you still do have time to apply to those programs by January 15th. They do include our 3-year scholars programs, the Global Scholars, Politics, Policy, and Law, and Public Health Scholars, our honors program, our Premier Scholars program, which is the Frederick Douglass Scholars program, our Community-Based Research Scholars program, as well as our joint degree program with Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto, Japan, the Secure Scholars. I highly recommend going on our website and taking a look at those different programs to see if they are of interest to you. Talking about the checklist, so it's a fairly easy checklist to complete your application. We are on the Common App and the Coalition. We do require the application fee or an approved fee waiver, the secondary school report, high school transcript, SAT or ACT scores, if submitted. If you do submit test scores, we do superscore the SAT and the ACT. 2 letters of recommendation, the guidance counselor and the teacher, the application essay, and then a resume or activity report. We do holistic reviews of all applications, so I will definitely look at all these different documents for my review of an application. Talking about financial aid, so if you want to apply for need-based aid at AU, we do require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile. We require the FAFSA for federal aid and the CSS profile for AU aid. AU is committed to making AU as affordable as possible to all students, so we do meet 100% of demonstrated institutional need for families. So we do, again, need both the FAFSA and the CSS profile to consider you for need-based aid. In regards to merit aid, all applicants to the university are automatically considered for merit scholarships through the admissions office. There are a few exceptions to the rule, which are listed on the screen. These scholarships may have a separate application or qualification process. About 30% of our admitted students are offered a merit scholarship, so they are fairly competitive, and students will be notified about their need-based and merit-based scholarships in their acceptance package. Talking a little bit about return on investment, college is an investment, so at AU we like to measure that by the success of our graduates. So within 6 months, about 93% of students are employed or in graduate school or both, and about 88% of those are working in a role directly related to their field of study. We also have a very cool website called We Know Success. It's at the bottom left hand of the screen, which allows you to look up the specific outcomes for each major. So you can see the employment rate, the top internship location, top employers after graduation, salaries, and more, even the top study abroad locations for each major. So I definitely highly recommend checking that out if you want to look at the kind of data behind it all. And I do want to highlight a couple of different ways to keep in touch with us. Again, we are offering virtual information sessions that you can register for online. We are also offering different interview opportunities as well. So you can definitely reach out to me or at the admissions office to set one of those up. But again, we are welcoming students and families to reach out to us in any way to kind of gain more information about our process and kind of the upcoming events that we have planned virtually. And with that, we'll hand it back over.
Thanks a lot, Dylan. I'm gonna turn it over to Ben now. Here you go, Ben.
Thank you, Dylan. You know, it's fun to do an event like this, as you know, we're in an environment where, you know, Dylan might be just a couple miles up the road, but in the, you know, everyday life, you know, where you're living in your campus and sometimes you don't have the chance to really, you know, get to know what some of your friends are doing at the other schools. But, you know, I'm from George Washington University, and it's really great to be able to spend some time with you guys tonight. As we look at this experience and also kind of how some of these experiences are being, you know, adjusted and reworked in light of COVID-19, you know, we're really focused on providing an amazing student experience to our students. And I know for Dylan and his colleagues up at AU, they're equally focused on that as they get ready for the fall semester. At GW, we do house our students. We actually guarantee and require it up through our junior year, and then it's optional our senior year as well. And so, you know, we are located right in the center of the city on our Foggy Bottom campus. So our students wake up about a 3 to 4, 5 block walk from the White House. You know, our southern neighbor is the State Department. A little bit to the west of our campus is the Kennedy Center. The north side of our campus is the K Street Business Corridor. And then the east side of our campus would be the International Monetary Fund and World Bank. So it's a pretty interesting place for our students to go to school. As a result, we, you know, our housing options are a little unique, and we've got over 26 different buildings that our students will live in, all different arrangements and singles, doubles, affinity housing, things of that nature. As students move up through their years, starting their sophomore year, they'll actually have a kitchen in their unit, just because they tend to live a little bit more of an independent life as they're trying to balance both a, you know, enriching on-campus academic experience with some of the off-campus experiences you heard Dylan reference, such as doing internships and events in the city, going to think tank discussions, anything of that nature. So, and speaking of dining, right, so we have a bit of a different meal plan at GW. You know, we found that with our students and the life they live, you know, if the idea is that you're coming and choosing to go to university in DC, you want to be able to do things in the city, have an internship on Capitol Hill and things like that. Well, it doesn't exactly make sense that your dining option is on campus, because if you're, let's say you've got class, you know, Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays you're mostly doing internship time, well, you shouldn't have to come back to campus midway through the day just to eat lunch, right? So we've worked with over 100 different partners throughout the city that accept our meal plan and allow our students to kind of both, you know, do groceries on their own and kind of meal prep, at the same time be able to get food while they're out and about throughout the city. And so, you know, there's a lot of variety. It lets students, you know, learn some budgeting, learn some planning skills, and you know, sometimes with parents, it's a little bit nerve-wracking to have your student kind of have so much kind of ownership and control over this experience. But in reality, I look at it as, you know, when students graduate from college, they move to a city, how do they eat, right? And we just kind of advance that time frame by about 4 years. And our students, you know, they develop that maturity, they develop those skill sets to be able to, you know, be able to figure out what works best for them, and to have some control to best fit the life that they're living at GW. So as you look at student life, right? So we've got over 450 clubs and organizations, active Division I athletics, intramurals, club sports. Our students are highly engaged with community service. We typically start off the year looking at doing a day of service to get the entire class both engaged and connected to the city that they'll spend 4 years in, but it's also just a great opportunity for them to build relationships and bonds with each other. And that continues on throughout the year. We also do an MLK day of service to start off in the spring semester, but you're going to see students, they build that affinity, right? Most likely a student starts at GW as the only student from their high school, and through student organizations, through service, through other events, their classroom experiences, they're building that network pretty quick. You know, students in DC, they learn the skill of networking fast, and they figure out how to build connections and how to utilize those connections as they're trying to maximize the most of their experience during their 4 years in the city here. So when you look at what we do academically, we are 7 different undergraduate schools our students can choose from. Unlike AU, you will apply directly to a school at GW. We allow you to select both a primary school as well as an alternate school. And so it allows us to have some flexibility in the admissions process. And students are able to do majors and minors across different schools. And I think you've seen a lot of innovation in the last 10 or so years within GW, just how the schools can be more flexible to allow a student to have multidimensional interests. Because we know as you're going through this process, a student might be thinking about A, B, and C, and they want to find ways to do multiple things at the same time. And as a result, they come up with some pretty creative combinations, and we're there to support that and help them be able to accomplish an academic experience that's meaningful to them. Within the schools, there's academic advising processes for each, right? So they'll advance through, they'll be working towards graduation requirements, then they'll start working towards major requirements, minor requirements. And one of the things that's been pretty cool is we've seen some programs at GW have now been established where schools are saying, we want you to study in our school, we want you to develop expertise and skill sets, but we also want you to develop a minor outside of our school, right? And so maybe it's a business school student who's going to do a minor in economics or a minor in Spanish language. We want our students to be multidimensional as they put together a resume that's going to be competitive out there in the marketplace. And so, similar to you, we've got special academic programs that students can look for. We've got 2 campuses, and so our Foggy Bottom campus is located right downtown versus our Mount Vernon campus about 2 to 3 miles away. We run shuttle system 24 hours a day. The Mount Vernon campus is about halfway in between Georgetown and American, if you're familiar with the DC area. And on our Mount Vernon campus, we really center some of our smaller living and learning communities. So that would include our honors program, our politics and values program. We have a women's leadership program, as well as a group we call Civic House. We have a very competitive 7-year BA and B program where these are students who apply as a high school senior, but they're applying both for undergrad at GW and for med school at the same time. And if they're admitted into that program, we actually are able to condense the program and accelerate it. So they're on a 7-year track to graduate from medical school. So it's a pretty unique experience. But the students we get to interact with as a part of this program are just truly phenomenal in what they've been able to do in their high school experience. And as a result, we're able to have that confidence to be able to move forward with both an undergrad admission, but also med school at the same time. So, we talk about why are you coming to DC, right? And the reality is that this is an incredibly unique 4 years of your life. And we want you to be able to come here and to customize it, right? So, in my background, right, I was an economics and sociology major. You can do that anywhere, but doing that in DC is going to give you certain advantages. It's going to give you certain experiences and people you can connect with, right? Because DC is the place where all these policy decisions come from, right? And great policy requires great science, great social science, that analytical skill sets, and we want our students to be engaged in that. And so what you see is students, they wake up, they're in class, they're hopping on the metro, they're hopping on a bike share bike, they're going to an internship experience, they're going to a talk that's happening across town, they're going to a Smithsonian Museum. We want them to have those hands-on experiences, right? We want them to be able to be in an environment where they're always able to tinker, they're able to customize. I think, as Dylan said earlier, the city runs on interns, and I think that's a very true statement. I think one of the things that's also great is rather than having a co-op style where students are doing a full 40-hour week experience, they're doing this on top of their academic experience, and that allows them every semester to change. And so they can do an internship experience, over in Avenue A for a semester, and then the next semester they might try something slightly different. And what they're doing is they're both learning and soaking up that knowledge, building their resume, and really test driving different careers so that when they go forward and graduate, they've got a really good sense of what they want to do out there, right? And they've been able to build a resume and build a network and build skill sets that puts them in high demand out there on the marketplace. As well, we want them to be able to develop the expertise and the confidence and the relationships with their faculty members to engage in research. And maybe that's research that a professor is doing and they're joining that research team, or it might be their own independent work that professor is going to guide and mentor them through. And the city, provides great resources with all the different research labs and entities. I remember in my college experience, I went to college about 2 hours away from DC, and I woke up one morning, 5 in the morning, to get on the commuter bus to get up to the Library of Congress, right? For a GW student or another DC student, that's a 15-minute solution, right? For them to be able to engage in those resources versus no one else kind of has that level of access that our students do. So what do we look for in this application process? So we're on the common application. It's the one and only way you apply to GW. We've been test optional since 2015. So you've seen a lot of news pretty much every day now about schools moving to test optional, and we've been in this world for about 5 years now and very comfortable with reviewing applications and working with applications. We know this year that the admissions process looks very different, right? So testing is limited. Your grades for this past spring semester, you may have grades, you may not have grades, you might just have pass fail. We're going to be working to talk to your college counselors, talk to people, and understand, okay, what are we looking at with this transcript? What do we need to know about the decisions that your individual school made that impacted how you were graded and what options you had? Maybe they perhaps had you drop some of the non-necessary courses because they weren't able to support, an arts class in a virtual environment or things of that nature. So it's going to be a much more hands-on year for us to be able to dive into everything in your application to really get a good picture of who you are and how we can be confident that when we offer that letter of admission, that this student is going to come here and really knock it out of the park. I think as well, the letters of recommendation are going to play an even bigger role than they played in prior years, right? And you think about, many school districts went to pass fail this past spring, and I think that's a totally valid choice that they made in kind of facing the pandemic and how they're trying to transition to virtual school. But in doing so, now that teacher letter recommendations be able to provide us a level of further analysis because that grade may not exist. And so we're going to be able to lean on all the different parts of your application, depending on your circumstance, to put that picture together. And so, it's really important to help us out by just getting your application items in, working forward to get your application complete, because we want to have the full picture to make the most informed decision we can on how we move forward with your application. So when we look at the deadlines, for our first year application pool, we do both early decision and regular decision. We do 2 rounds of early decision. So you see our deadlines are November 1st and January 5th. And we also have a healthy pool of transfer students that will join us each semester as well. And really what we're trying to do here, and you heard Dylan talk to, these are the application deadlines, but they're also the financial aid deadlines, right? Because we want to make sure that when we offer you a letter of admission, that we're able to show you exactly how we're going to make it affordable for you. But that requires your help, right? And that requires your help in doing the FAFSA and the CSS profile and whatever documents that may be required to complete that financial aid side. So throughout the application process, we're going to create a portal for you so you can check on the status of missing documents, but you'll also have a portal to be able to check on your financial aid status. Because again, my goal is that in late March, you get that email from us saying, hey, your admissions decision is live and active, go check on it. And then hopefully an hour later, you're also getting a notification from the financial aid office. And what you're able to see there is an amazing financial aid package that's going to make GW be an affordable option for you. And we want that to happen, right? There's no point in us putting that offer admission out there if we can't make it affordable for you at the same time. So with that, I'd just like to wrap up by, reiterating kind of some of the things you heard Dylan talk about, that we are all adapting, right? And we are all working to best engage students, families, counselors throughout the next semester. What that means is most likely engaging with us through virtual information sessions, chats with your current students. We are going to find ways, despite whatever boundaries are in front of you, to make sure you have the information you need to make the best decision, right? What my focus is that you have a wonderful and happy college experience and you feel like you had all the information you needed to make the right decision for yourself. And you may or may not have that option to do a campus tour due to travel restrictions, or who knows what the obstacles may be. But we will work twice as hard to make those connections with you so that you have confidence in your decision and you get to a campus and you fall in love with it, right? And that's what we're mostly focused on, right? We want happy students who come to our campuses and they thrive. Because if you don't connect with the campus, you're not going to do all those amazing things we talked about. You're probably not going to go do 3 internships. You're not going to do research with your professor because you don't feel you've made that connection. And instead, we need to make sure through this admissions process that we're constantly getting you the information you need so that you end up choosing that school that is your very first choice right from the very beginning. So with that, I hope to see you guys in the future and feel free to reach out to us. But thank you for spending some time learning about us.
Thanks a lot, Ben. Dylan and Mom, come on back online.
Hi. Thanks, guys. That was absolutely fabulous. I was typing away notes so quickly. Okay, so some of my questions are for basically for each of you. And let me start with asking what kinds of contingency plans you have in place so far, for fall opening, knowing that it's a fluid situation and it could change.
Yeah, so AU, we had just announced kind of our plan, AU Forward, on Tuesday, kind of detailing what the fall will look like, including the residential and kind of classroom experience. So we are starting our academic calendar August 24th, I believe, so at about the same time as we usually do. We are going to end in-person classroom instruction Thanksgiving break. So again, students will complete the remainder of the semester and finals online after Thanksgiving. Residence halls, again, will be open to students. Every student will have a single room. Our dining locations on campus will be altered as well. So we do have a main cafeteria that offers a buffet style kind of eatery. Obviously that will be no more, so it'll be takeaway kind of dining options where students can order online and go and pick it up as well. For, again, classroom instruction, every single class will be offered or available online, so students can choose to either participate in fully online classes or have a hybrid model, or again, work with faculty members to kind of determine what classes might be available for that in-person opportunity.
Yeah, and at GW, we're in a similar place. Earlier this week, we also kind of put forward our plan to the city of how we're going to kind of transform some of our normal processes. And a lot of it is some common sense stuff, right? So we're going to extend our move-in period instead of it just happening on a weekend over 10 or so days, right? Just so that there isn't the students with all their boxes and furniture and stuff and getting clogged up in the lobby of a residence hall, right? So students will have more of a defined, okay, you show up this day at 9:30 p.m., right? Some of your orientation programming will be, more virtual learning. And then once you get on campus, and you'll be in a small group of people that perhaps moved in the same time as you, and you'll continue some of that stuff. We're also, pursuing the kind of hybrid instruction model so that, a student is able to, be on campus, but if there's a reason they're not able to come to campus this fall, that they can continue on with their learning in an online format. And so we're just trying to provide flexibility to students as they go forward. And at the same time, right, we're an urban campus, and just trying to think about how we look at space and incorporate that, and for events and student organizations, how do they perhaps reimagine some of the gatherings that they would normally do? And I think what we're not trying to do is do everything in Zoom all the time. People are a little tired of that. But I think there's room for us to be creative and for us to still have a really rich student experience.
On each of your campuses, will students and professors be required to wear masks?
Yes.
Okay. I'm wondering if you had more requests than normal for deferrals for students who don't want to have that more unusual first year experience, and what your response has been to it if you have had a higher than normal number of requests for deferrals.
So I'll jump in first. I would say we actually have had less than normal requests for deferrals. Some of that is just because some of the traditional gap year experiences aren't really feasible this year, right? You're not going to be able to travel to do community service or do international travel and such. And I think now that we both announced our plans for the fall, I think students and families are digesting that, and we may see some change in those requests. But what I get the sense of is students they're pretty anxious and ready to go to college. One of the things that's been nice is because our summer instruction has been 100% virtual, is a good number of our students have actually decided to get an early start, and they've actually enrolled in summer coursework because they had the ability to do so from home versus that never was a possibility before. So I actually think we're probably going to see less deferral requests overall, especially because we're providing a hybrid option for students that perhaps aren't able to travel to campus to start their college experience. But if it does, if there is an uptick, we're not going to provide or create a arbitrary deadline to try to keep that number low. We're going to respect students' wishes through this process.
Yeah, similar at AU, we did push our deferral request deadline back from June 1 to July 1st, just because we knew that the announcement for AU opening would come in June. Right now, we are similar to last year in deferrals. I think there might be a small uptick in deferrals after this announcement, as well as our international student population who might be still working on visas and things like that. But right now, we're about the same as last year for approved deferrals.
So I know that it's not unusual for me to have students who are looking at both American and GW, even though you are very different institutions. Geographically putting a student in the nation's capital, someone who is very politically aware, could be very happy in either environment. But I'm often asked if, besides the fact that your campuses look very different from each other, 2 or 3 special things that might make a student prefer GW or a student prefer AU. Dylan, why don't you go first this time, and maybe we'll alternate just who's going first to make it easier.
Yeah, I did mention when I was talking in the presentation, a lot of students really like our academic flexibility, that they can come in undecided and easily switch the major to one of our most popular international studies or political science, or double major across fields and minor across fields. In our school communication, it's actually a requirement to double major outside the school. So again, I think our students definitely enjoy that kind of academic flexibility for sure. And again, we are smaller than our other area schools as well. So some students, really like that more intimate feel.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this just comes down to personal preference, right? I'm confident that you're going to get a great education at both. I'm confident that a student can make the most of either campus, but it comes down to what look and feel and what they're going for. I think Dylan talked earlier when he was showing pictures of the campus about throwing the frisbee. Well, that's not going to happen as much at GW just because you're right there in the middle of the city, and it's similar to people make choices to live in the city, live in the suburbs. They could work at the same place, right? And so they're both looking for the some same core things, but they also are looking to customize it to what they're comfortable with. And I think for our students, they just tend to be like, they're super engaged. It's like the type A center of the universe, right? And so they're just go, 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 and for them, that location provides them the jumping off point to all the different things they're trying to connect. And again, I think it's for students to kind of figure out, what am I looking for? It's very natural at the beginning of the college search that GW and AU are going to be on the same college list together. And then as they get through it, one of us is probably going to stay on the list and the other is going to fall off. And they've just kind of re-clarified, okay, what type of college experience am I looking for?
And since you've both been test optional for years, 5 years in one case, 10 years, in the other, I'm looking for some ancient history in the sense of, what did you see as changes both in the your first enrolled class test optional from before test optional, and in the changes in the way you reviewed applications? Yes, you both review holistically, you look at everything, but once you dropped SAT and ACT, I know that you're not test blind. You still will consider a score. So a very high score above your average could certainly be helpful. But sort of what else changed? What were the immediate, ramifications of going test optional, so that it must be 70 or 80 schools that in the past month or two have gone test optional, the things that we can expect that might happen for them as well?
Yeah, I think the most profound impact we saw was a message of support to students, perhaps who are coming from a high school that no one's ever applied to GW before, right? We look at students that are coming from high schools that, we've received an application, every year we've had at least one, versus the part of the applicant pool that grew the most was students that applied from high school that we had never seen an application before in the last 5 years, right? And therefore they weren't able to compare themselves to someone else in their high school and be like, well, my grades are kind of similar to them and they got into GW. Like, they just didn't have that comparison point. So all they did was they looked at test score ranges, and quite likely, had they applied, we would have admitted them, but they didn't perhaps have the confidence because they just didn't know anyone else who'd gone through that process and applied to that school. And for us to be able to go outside and say, we are test optional and therefore we're going to double down into your transcript. And so if you have strong confidence in your transcript, put that forward and let us be in the position to say yes, rather than preventing us from saying yes because you never submit the application. And I think that's really the thing that's really helped us broaden who's been looking at GW from all across the country and the world.
Similarly, definitely at AU, when we first kind of made that announcement, it came more out of, equity for our students. Students who might not have the opportunity to sit for the test a couple times or have that great test prep available to them. Definitely over the years, we've seen a increase in diversity of our applicants. Test optional, definitely about 30% of our students will apply test optional every year. Definitely, we'll see that go up this year as well. But again, that just kind of allows us to dive a little bit deeper into other aspects of the application, letters of recommendation, and again, what the student is able to do over the course of 4 years is, a lot more telling of what they can do academically, than a test.
So Dylan, so you said 30% of your students tend to apply test optional, meaning 70% do submit scores, right? So then at GW, are your percentages pretty similar, that 70% submit scores?
Yeah, we usually, for us, it's 75%, but same ballpark.
And would you both agree that if a student does submit an SAT or ACT score that is at the upper end or above your mid 50% range, that it could be a benefit?
Sorry, I lost my mute button. We're going to look at everything. And so, different parts of the application might be helping in an area, different parts of the application might be hurting. And a strong SAT score or ACT score that does exist does play a positive factor in the review of an application.
Okay. Okay, are test scores required for merit scholarships? Or I know in the case of GW, I believe you still need the test score for your double degree BSMD program.
Yeah, so for the BAMD program, at the moment, they are still required, but for merit scholarships, there's no requirement for test scores. Again,
Right.
if they're there, they play a role. If they're not there, we move on with the rest of the application.
American, any student can apply to any program, test optional.
Okay. Then I mentioned, that double degree med program. I wonder if you, by any chance, have any statistics in terms of admission rate, average GPA, scores, the things that truly distinguish the small handful of students who matriculate in your accelerated med program.
Yeah, so it's a very competitive program. So usually it's about 1,000 or so applicants, and roughly 20 to 30 get selected for interviews with the med school faculty, and from there, 12 or so students are offered admission. So if you do the math, it's roughly 1.2% acceptance rate. And so what that means is these students, are quite strong. But at that point, when you're at that level of selection, it is just as important what the metrics are as what they've done, right? And so the med school faculty, they're looking at them for their communication skills. They're looking at them for their clinical experience and how they've interacted with patients. We see applicants who have done a lot of scientific research, and that's great. Obviously, we want to encourage it, but they would put that behind the clinical experience, right? They really want to understand working with patients and those skills as they're trying to identify students who are best fit. Because we know we're going to provide the research experience throughout their college experience and their med school experience too. But it's really about working with people and developing some of those more softer skills that'll play a positive role and can help separate the difference between someone who's a 3.98 and someone else who's also a 3.98, right? And so numerically, the differences, aren't as pronounced just because of how top caliber, even the next 20 kids who don't get an interview look just as good by the numbers, but it's again, some of these things we see in the essays and their resume that help move them to the next level.
Right. Okay. And we know that Common App is going to have an essay, an optional essay next year about COVID-19. Let me not get into coalition since only one of you takes coalition, but I'm wondering what advice you might give to the juniors and their parents who are listening now, and to the educational consultants and counselors in terms of giving kids advice about under what circumstances might you reply to that question, or if you should even consider using your personal statement for a more elaborate response. Dylan, you want to try first this time?
Yeah.
You want a hot seat.
So both the Common App and the Coalition have included a space for students to kind of write about what COVID-19 has impacted them. I think Coalition has gone even further with a few kind of bullet point questions as well. But yeah, again, we'd welcome students to share as much information as they want in that space, how it affected their learning, their different environment, if they weren't able to complete assignments or things like that, if they were designated as an essential worker, the families were, any kind of area that they felt they were impacted in, we'd welcome them to write in that section about that.
Yeah, and I would, to add on that, I'd encourage them to continue to use their, let's say their normal Common App personal statement with whatever their original plan was, and not feel like they now have to take in this different direction, because they are providing that space to talk directly to this area. I think one thing, as I mentioned earlier, one thing that's gonna be the most hard about this review process is that the policies and decisions this past spring at every individual high school, it's a little bit like the Wild West, right? And, you know, sometimes a school district made a blanket policy, other times they said, here's your menu of options, and you as a student can choose which option to pursue. You know, I expect that guidance counselors are going to help provide us that, you know, context in their letters, but it might just be helpful as well for a student to help us understand how they made whatever choices were put in front of them, just so that we have, again, the best way to be able to look at that transcript and make conclusions, and not for us to perhaps connect dots that don't exist.
And I have one more question before I have Jason chime in with any that have come in from the audience. I'm wondering, not just for the kids who are applying this coming year, but for kids who were impacted this year with AP and IB, and even ACE, if you accept, you know, credits for ACE, how you will be, you know, evaluating or awarding credit or advanced standing based on the changes that were made to testing for those programs.
Yeah, sorry. At AAU, again, you know, credit by exam, you know, again, or credit by, if the student completes the course with a satisfactory grade, we'll continue to award those courses and credits for those students.
Yeah, and same with us. We're not changing any of our policies, and so we'll continue to honor the scores that students are given, despite the fact that we know that there's been some changes in how they got to those scores.
And do you both accept ACE, which is very big here in Florida, but not necessarily in other parts of the country?
We do not.
We do not as well.
Okay. Actually, it sort of, I guess, reinforces something I've been telling students, which is, given the choice of, you know, AP or ACE, I'm almost always in favor of the AP, unless the student isn't quite at that AP level, because I do think that ACE is, I hate to say this, but maybe slightly, you know, lower down. But interesting that either one of you accept the credits. Anyway, Jason, do you want to jump on and talk, any questions that came in from the audience that are different than the ones we've already been addressing?
Yep, we have a couple in here. I'm gonna see how many we can get through. Can you both let us know, do you require both the FAFSA and the CSS profile? Right. And can you both talk a little bit about how you recalculate GPAs?
Sure. So I'll start. We do recalculate every GPA, and that means, you know, basically we're scrubbing it down to the core academic areas, and then we're doing it in a truly unweighted fashion. I think it's important, you know, to keep in mind that GPA is really only meaningful within the context of that high school, and so, you know, for us, you know, we are trying to, you know, provide some standardization, but at the same time, we're not taking a GPA at one school and comparing it to a school down the street or in a different state, things of that nature. And that context is key for us to do this in a responsible manner.
Yeah, at AU, we'll take the weighted and unweighted. For most schools in Florida, the public schools, we're going to take the unweighted GPA for those students.
Where can people find out about any virtual information sessions you're holding, and will you have any students participating in those sessions?
So we just launched kind of the summer series for virtual presentations on our website. So again, you can just go to our website, and I think under the admissions tab, there'll be a couple of different options for students to select. And we will actually have our student ambassadors who would normally be giving tours during the summer. They will be on the presentation as well, answering questions.
Yeah, and we've transformed our normal visit page to a visit virtually page, and we've been running virtual information sessions through the spring and summer, and our students help co-present with us. So even though we don't have summer student workers on campus with us, they are still a part of the office, you know, from wherever they may be this summer. They're also manning a chat we have. So if you hop on our our virtual engagement page, a chat will pop up, and that won't be an admissions officer, that will be a current student, so you'll have that opportunity to jump in with them. And we recognize that, while we might be doing information sessions 3 times a week, if you hop on and it's 7 p.m., we're trying to, and we're moving to get a recorded information session available to you. So if that's the time you have, you can do it right there. But if you want to be able to ask questions and talk to a current student as part of it, then to come back to one of our scheduled information sessions.
Great.
Can I add a quick question?
Go ahead.
Are either of you allowing families to self-tour right now? And also, when do you plan to start touring again if you're not currently doing it?
So our campus is completely closed right now, so all the buildings are closed. You can walk around campus, but you can't go into any buildings. For welcoming students and families back to campus, we are right now scheduled to start in-person tours in September, capping those tours at I believe around 10, and using one of our recital halls as the presentation room. Some more information will be sent out regarding in-person tours.
Yeah, we are similar that, there are no official tours happening up campus. This summertime, I did bounce into a family that was self-touring themselves yesterday when I had to run to campus. And, we do have a self-guided tour that students can look at through the web. But, as Dylan said, the buildings are closed. So before you invest your time, energy, and money, let's really set the expectations of what you're going to be able to experience. And Google Street View can provide you exactly the same right now. We don't have a plan to start tours right when classes start. I think it's something that we will probably cross at some point within the fall semester. But there's a lot of change that's happening, and college will look different in the fall. So we're focused on providing that transition to our current students as best we can, and we will be continuing with all of our virtual engagement. And at some point, I imagine the tours will come back, but that's not our top priority at the moment.
Dylan, can you tell us a little bit more about your application-based scholarships?
The application-based scholarships, I'm trying to think, the special academic programs, or so on the additional scholarship page that we have, it includes the yellow ribbon, tuition exchange. So again, those students might, certain students only might qualify for one of those, and they do have a separate kind of process for that. But the full list is on our website pertaining to different students and different scholarships.
And Ben, can you talk a little bit about your merit scholarships and what numbers students put a student in range?
Yeah, sure. So, our merit-based scholarships, as Dylan mentioned for AU as well, every student gets considered for both admission and merit-based scholarship. And for us, the scholarships will tend to range from perhaps about $10,000 or so up to $25,000 per year. We do put the majority of our aid dollars in the need-based side. But typically what we're seeing is, of our 25th to 75th percentile or so, you want to be up at the higher ranges there. And so for us, on the SAT, you're looking at the middle 50%, it's about a 1330 to 1460. I just talked about how we're not going to compare GPAs across different high schools and such, but I'll throw some numbers out there just to help with that. I think you're going to see a middle 50% for GPA in the 3.7 to 3.81 or so unweighted, and that just gives you a little bit of context. But again, these are individual decisions, and we're looking at the high school, the quality of the course selections, things like that, and those are playing into it. And we're not using just a strict SAT or GPA based sliding scale.
When talking about GPA real quick, can you guys just clarify for us whether or not they are recalculated based on core only, or will they include, classes from like a business academy or an engineering academy, which have classes that aren't truly a core class, but are very academic in nature?
So when I talk about GPAs, I'm talking about those core ones and in an unweighted fashion. However, you know, if we see a student's maybe applying to engineering, those engineering academy grades might be a part of our committee discussions. Or if there's students applying to our fine arts school, we're going to be looking at their photography coursework and their drawing coursework and those performances, but it's not going to play into the kind of the GPA numbers that we might say out loud.
Great. And one last question, do you both track demonstrated interest?
American, we do. So we do definitely track demonstrated interests in a couple of different ways. You know, before COVID, you know, there's information sessions hosted in throughout Florida, interviews throughout Florida, high school visits. All that is now remote. We're still allowing students to sign up for different sessions, different webinars. I will be hosting different interviews for students, and the students will get more information as well as counselors in schools will get more information about how to set that up and how to kind of navigate that.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you both for coming tonight. Really appreciate you guys being a part of our webinar series. Just so everyone else in the audience knows, we've done lots of these webinars in the past. We've got a whole series of COVID conversations. We've talked to, at this point, the majority of the public universities in Florida. We did one recently on what test optional means and application essays to get you admitted. All of these have been recorded. They're all up on YouTube. There are links for them on our website if you go to scorewebinars.com. Next week, we're going to be talking with TCU and SMU, and we have an episode of COVID conversations with Jacksonville University, University of North Florida, and Flagler College. Again, the links to register for those are at scorewebinars.com. I'd like to thank you guys again. Thanks, Mom. Thanks to our audience. Everyone, please stay safe and healthy.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.